The new wall label was still lifting at one corner when I saw what Roland had done. Beneath the title, Hands at Work, in letters large enough to read from the donor bar, it said, "Curated and catalogued by Roland Price, Executive Director." A pale strip of adhesive marked the place where my name had been that morning. I found him beside the workbench, accepting congratulations with one hand wrapped around a glass he never drank from. "You removed my name." Roland kept smiling. "Your name was removed. Assistants don't get credit." He said it loudly enough for the people nearest us to hear. Before I could answer, Evelyn Shaw set her leather binder on the workbench's acrylic barrier and opened her signed condition report. She was at the preview to perform her final inspection. Every object entry named me as responsible registrar. She looked from the report to Roland's wall label. "Why does your label contradict my signed record?" Roland's smile held. Mine didn't. The unanswered question was not whether he had stolen my work. It was how much of my life I was willing to let him take with it. "Evelyn," he said warmly, as if she had just arrived at a dinner party, "we're looking at two different kinds of credit. I'm looking at one kind of fact. The little circle around us tightened. Not dramatically. People simply stopped drifting toward the wine. Our board treasurer, Lloyd Becker, became fascinated by the same iron vice he had walked past twice already. A donor named Sheila held a mushroom tart halfway to her mouth. Roland rested 2 fingers on the binder. The lender's report identifies the staff member who processed the objects. The gallery label identifies curatorial leadership. Evelyn moved the binder before his fingers could settle. This report identifies Nell as responsible registrar. The catalog appendix identifies her as the person who reconciled provenance and prepared the object histories. Your label says you cataloged the exhibit. A server appeared at Roland's elbow with a tray of sparkling water. He took one, though he already had a drink. "Then we have a wording issue," he said. "Easy to correct." I could hear the air handler cycling above us. It had a faint rattle at the end of each breath, a maintenance ticket I had filed 9 days earlier. Roland turned to me. His eyes were kind. That was when I knew he was furious. "Nell, would you ask Dev to check the print file?" "I checked it at 11 this morning. Check it again." The approved file had 3 credits: mine, Dev's, and Tasha's. Sheila finally ate the tart. Roland gave a quiet laugh designed to let everyone escape with him. "This is why we have previews. We catch these little production gremlins before the public comes through." Evelyn closed the binder. A gremlin didn't peel adhesive off that wall. The blue cotton ties on the workbench's accession tag trembled in the conditioned air. I had made that square knot myself, left over right, right over left, flat against the Tyvek so it wouldn't twist. For 6 weeks, I had tied the same knot on every object in the gallery. Now I stared at it because looking at Roland felt dangerous. 6 weeks earlier, he had brought me coffee. That should have warned me. Roland believed coffee belonged in 3 places: breakfast tables, donor meetings, and other people's hands. He disliked carrying cups through the collections wing because, as he once told a group of volunteers, liquids and history had been enemies since the first roof leaked. He appeared in my workroom doorway holding 2 paper cups and a cardboard tube under his arm. "Peace offering," he said. "What war are we in?" "The one where you keep rejecting my exhibit schedule." I rejected one schedule. 3 versions of one schedule. They all had the same impossible dates. He set the coffee well away from my desk. That was Roland. He could disregard a person with exquisite care while respecting a 6-inch coaster rule. My workroom occupied what had once been the museum director's private office, back when directors apparently needed a fireplace and collection staff needed basements. The fireplace had been sealed. Flat archival boxes stood on the mantel. A 19th century portrait of the museum's founder watched me complete insurance forms with the exhausted expression of a man who regretted philanthropy. Roland pulled the cap off the cardboard tube and slid out a rendering. Shaw agreed. I forgot the coffee. Evelyn Shaw's collection had been courted by museums twice our size. Tools, trade signs, shop furniture, pattern books, and handmade measuring instruments sounded modest until you saw them together. A cooper's crows polished by decades of use, a dressmaker's cutting table covered with pin scars, a cabinet maker's tool chest whose fitted drawers were more intricate than most jewelry boxes. I flattened the rendering on my desk. All 62 objects? 58. She's holding back the planes with the ivory tips. Good. You say that like you personally defeated ivory. I say that like I personally fill out the wildlife declarations. Roland smiled. He was good company when he wanted to be. That was part of the trouble. The exhibition had started as a proposal from Dev Malik, our associate curator of material culture, who had noticed that half the objects in Evelyn's online collection were described only by dealer language: rare, fine, important. Words that increased prices without increasing knowledge. He wanted to build an exhibition around evidence of use, the wear marks, repairs, fingerprints, and alterations that showed how work actually happened. Roland had turned Dev's academic paragraph into a title people remembered: Hands at Work. Then he had convinced Evelyn to lend us the collection. That was his real competence. Roland could listen to a donor describe a dead spouse for 40 minutes and remember the name of the spouse's favorite tree 6 months later. He could make a struggling museum sound essential without making the struggle sound desperate. He'd taken our annual gala from folding chairs in the sculpture court to a sold-out dinner people complained about being unable to attend. He could also make you feel that any success in his vicinity had passed through him first. When? I asked. Delivery in 4 weeks. Preview 2 weeks after that. I looked at him. He nudged the coffee toward me without crossing the invisible safe line around my paperwork. The truck schedule is tight, he said. 4 weeks for loan agreements, insurance, facility reports, mounts, photography, pest review, incoming condition, cataloging, and installation. When you list things, they sound so negative. They sound sequential. Tasha's available. Tasha is one person. So are you, and yet somehow you contain multitudes. That line was borrowed from a speech I had written for him. I rolled the rendering closed. What did you promise Evelyn? A careful exhibition. Roland. And a touring proposal. I put the rendering down again. He lifted one shoulder. A proposal, not a tour. You want to pitch venues before we've opened the crates. I want options. We need the underwriting, Nell. There it was. Our boiler replacement had eaten the reserve fund. 2 corporate sponsors had shifted their giving toward projects with more cheerful photographs. Admissions were steady, but steady did not pay for the humidity controls Roland had mentioned in every donor appeal for 8 months. A tour could bring venue fees, national attention, and the kind of grant language that made trustees breathe normally. It needs a lead registrar, I said. It has one. Named in the agreement. He studied me over the rim of his cup. You want a title change. I want the authority to stop object movement if conditions aren't safe. I want direct access to Shaw, and I want project credit. We always credit staff. Then put it in writing. His face did something small, not offense. Recalculation. Roland was my mother's younger brother. He had recommended me for my first museum job after graduate school, a 9-month cataloging position in a county historical society, where the roof leaked into buckets and the accession ledger had been typed by 3 generations of increasingly angry employees. He had made one phone call. For years, that phone call appeared whenever I asked him for something. Nell, he said, if I trusted anyone else with this, I'd be worried about your self-esteem. That's almost flattering. It's entirely flattering. It's also not an answer. He tapped the rendering against his palm. Draft the authority language. Credit can wait until we know what everyone contributes. I should have pressed harder. Instead, I thought of the collection, the compressed schedule, and the chance to correct records that had been copied from auction catalog to dealer listing, until guesses hardened into facts. All communication gets saved in the project folder, I said. Yes. No promises to venues without a condition review. Yes. Dev owns the interpretive text. Dev develops the interpretive text. Roland. He smiled. You see why I brought coffee. Tasha Green arrived the following Monday with a roll of foam under one arm and a bag of biscuits under the other. She'd been building mounts and installing exhibitions longer than most of our trustees had known museums required either activity. Her official title was preparator. Roland tended to introduce her as our art handler, which made her mouth flatten by half an inch. She dropped the foam on the work table. Tell me the Shaw rumor is false. 58 objects. In 6 weeks? Preview in 6. Then the rumor lacked imagination. She took a biscuit from the bag and slid the rest toward me. Tasha treated food as a tool, available, practical, and rarely discussed. I showed her the preliminary list. She read it without touching the paper, hands tucked under her arms. 23 wall mounts? 18. 5 are going in cases. Cases we own? Cases Roland thinks we own. She nodded. Those are always the best cases. Dev came in carrying his laptop and 3 books bristling with paper flags. He was careful with objects and violent with bookmarks. I found the tool chest, he said. You found a 300-pound chest? I found its maker, probably. Tasha took another biscuit. That word will be doing important work. The chest was listed as American, circa 1890, maker unknown. Dev had located a nearly identical fitted interior in a trade journal from Cincinnati. The punch star pattern on the drawer pulls might connect it to a German immigrant cabinet maker whose shop records survived in a labor archive. I opened a new object record and typed possible attribution in capital letters. Dev leaned over my shoulder. You don't trust me. I trust you enough to preserve the evidence of your uncertainty. That's beautiful. Put that on my annual review. We worked late that first week, and the exhibit began to feel less like Roland's rendering and more like a room we were discovering together. Dev traced owners. Tasha translated design fantasies into structures that could bear weight. I built the movement schedule, checked environmental tolerances, and turned Evelyn's inconsistent inventory into records another registrar could follow without calling me. At the end of each day, I cut lengths of blue cotton tape for the temporary tags. My mother had taught me the square knot while helping at one of Roland's first museum fundraisers, long after I was grown and already working in collections. She used the same knot for parcels and flower stakes. Left over right, Tasha said one night, watching me. Right over left. You know they manufacture plastic fasteners now. You know we don't attach plastic fasteners to historic surfaces. I meant for your personality. Dev laughed so hard he dropped a pencil. The loan agreement arrived on Friday. Evelyn had accepted my authority language and strengthened it. Object movement required the responsible registrar or the lender's representative. Changes to attribution would be documented. Updated condition reports would be signed after installation. On the designation line, it read, Nell Price, Collections and Registration Manager. I printed the signature copy and carried it upstairs. Roland's office overlooked the sculpture court. He was rehearsing remarks into his phone while adjusting the angle of a bronze horse on his conference table. He signed the agreement without reading the designation line. Dev tells me the chest may have a Cincinnati maker, he said. He told you, probably. We can build a story around probably. We can research probably. Which is why you're all here. On his desk, beside the agreement, lay the donor preview invitation. Hands at Work, it read. An exhibition by Roland Price. I picked it up. He adjusted the bronze horse another quarter turn. That's fundraising language, he said. It's inaccurate language. It's 6 words on an invitation. Dev proposed the exhibit, and I secured it. Tasha is designing it. I'm cataloging it. Roland finally looked at me. His expression was patient, almost affectionate. Then all of you should be very proud, he said. I'd be prouder if my name were on the invitation. You're taking this personally. My name is personal. Roland sighed and leaned back in his chair. Behind him, the sculpture court windows turned the late afternoon sky into gray squares. Your name will be in the gallery credits. Dev's will be there. Tasha's will be there. The invitation is meant to establish a simple public identity for the exhibition. Your identity, my accountability. That's generous of you." His smile thinned. "Do you want me to apologize for putting my reputation behind the project? I want you to stop standing in front of everyone else's work and calling it leadership." The words came out cleaner than I intended. Roland looked down at the signed loan agreement. When he spoke again, the warmth had left his voice. "I got you into this field, Nell. You made a phone call, and you've spent 15 years reducing it to one phone call. It was an important call. It was not my career." He capped his pen. "Your mother worries about the way you keep score." "My mother thinks an apology is a receipt you save forever. See, scorekeeping." I set the invitation back on his desk. "The gallery credits need to be approved before printing. They will be. I want to see the final file. You always do." It was true, which made the promise sound safer than it was. At 5:40 the next morning, the freight company called the loading dock intercom because the driver had arrived 11 hours early and found our gate locked. Tasha answered from inside the gallery. "You expecting a truck?" she called. "I'm expecting it after 4. Apparently, it's European. I hurried through the collections corridor, still buttoning my cardigan. The driver stood outside beside a white climate-controlled truck, blowing into his hands. He had a clipboard, a red face, and the settled irritation of a man whose schedule had already been explained to him by people he disliked. "I've got 9 crates from Shaw," he said. "The courier isn't here. I've got a signed release. You have permission to transport. You don't have permission to unload without the lender's representative." He looked past me into the dock. "I can't sit here all day." "The crates can." Tasha made a quiet sound behind me that might have been a cough. The driver pointed at his route sheet. "I was told 6 a.m. "By whom?" He turned the clipboard around. Roland's cell number was written across the top. I called Roland once. He answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. "The driver says you changed delivery. I gave them flexibility. You gave them 6 a.m. They had another pickup. Evelyn's courier isn't here. The loading dock humidity is out of range because facilities hasn't switched the winter setting. Then move the crates inside. I can't unload them. Nell, don't make a sacrament out of a schedule. The signed agreement requires Evelyn's representative. She trusts us. She trusts the agreement." There was a pause. I could picture him sitting up in bed, reaching for his glasses. "Call Evelyn," he said. "I don't call lenders before 6 in the morning because you gave a truck driver flexibility. That woke him completely. I'll handle it." 20 minutes later, the driver climbed back into his cab with a coffee Tasha found somewhere. Roland had persuaded the freight dispatcher to make the other pickup first and return at 10. It was a good solution, achieved quickly. He texted me one sentence, "You're welcome." Evelyn arrived at 9:30 in a dark wool coat and flat shoes polished to a shine. Her courier was a conservator named Marisol Vega, who carried 2 humidity meters and a canvas case full of tools. "I hear the collection tried to visit without me," Evelyn said. It was turned away at the door, as any respectable collection should be at that hour. She glanced toward the dock office, where Roland was charming the facilities manager into increasing the heat. "Did he change the schedule?" "Yes." "Did he tell you?" "No." Evelyn's mouth tightened, but she did not indulge the reaction. "Show me where the crates will acclimate." The truck returned at 10:12. We photographed the cargo seal before breaking it, checked the shock indicators, and moved the crates into the receiving room in order. Roland stayed long enough to welcome Evelyn and tell the museum photographer that the unpacking would make excellent social media. "No photography until we complete incoming condition," I said. The photographer lowered his camera. Roland slipped his hands into his pockets. He can document the process. Not while we're establishing condition. Marisol nodded. The lender agrees. Roland's eyes moved from her to Evelyn and then to me. He smiled. Of course. Nell runs a very disciplined room. It sounded like praise. It landed like a warning. The crates acclimated for 24 hours. The next morning, we started with the workbench. Its top had been cut from a single slab of maple, 3 inches thick and scarred with chisel points. A shallow crescent had been worn into the front edge, where someone's body had leaned into it for years. Dev stood at the edge of the receiving room as Marisol and I compared the surface to Evelyn's photographs. Can I say that the wear represents a body? He asked. You can say it's consistent with repeated contact, I said. Can I say a human body? Tasha glanced up from the crate hardware. We've eliminated bears. Dev typed something. I value this collaborative environment. The workbench had traveled well. We attached its temporary Tyvek tag beneath the right stretcher with blue cotton tape. I tied the knot flat and photographed it beside the object number. Evelyn watched. You still use those, she said. Plastic fasteners catch, and string absorbs moisture. So does the workbench. That earned the smallest curve at the corner of her mouth. We found the first discrepancy in crate 3. A brass divider had a shallow dent near the hinge that did not appear in the lender's older image. Under magnification, the oxidation inside the dent matched the surrounding metal. It was not new damage. It was incomplete documentation. Marisol added it to the report. I initialed the amendment. Evelyn initialed after me. Roland entered while we were bent over the table. Everything healthy? Everything is inanimate, Tasha said. Good, keep it that way. He came to my side and studied the divider as if it were a surgical patient. Is this the one that belonged to the shipbuilder? Possibly, Dev said from behind him. The dealer attributed it to Amos Bell, but there's no supporting record. Roland glanced toward the photographer waiting in the hall. Evelyn, would you mind holding it while we get a shot? Yes, Evelyn said. Roland laughed. She did not. The object is stable, I said, but we're not handling it for publicity. It's a tool, Nell. It survived a shipyard. It survived because people eventually stopped treating it like a tool. He looked at Marisol, hoping for daylight. She began checking a hinge screw with a flashlight. Roland left without the photograph. That afternoon, he sent a project communication policy to the staff. All lender questions, he wrote, should be routed through the director's office to ensure consistent institutional messaging. I forwarded it to Evelyn with a copy of the signed loan agreement and asked whether she wanted communications changed. Her answer arrived 3 minutes later. No, I saved it in the project folder. We unpacked the chest on the 4th day. It sat inside a custom travel frame, dark walnut with iron corner straps and recessed handles. The newer base was stained slightly too red. Tasha crouched beside it before anyone touched the lifting bars. This wasn't supported the same way in the packing photo. Marisol pulled up the image. In Evelyn's warehouse, the chest rested on 2 padded blocks beneath the older side rails. In our crate, 1 block had shifted inward during transit and now pressed against the replacement base. Hold the lift, I said. Tasha slid a mirror underneath. I've got a line. A scratch? Maybe. She angled the light. In the mirror, a narrow crack ran from an old screw hole toward the corner. It was nearly invisible from above. Marisol's face changed. Evelyn bent without kneeling, one hand braced on her thigh. Was that present? Not in the outgoing report, Marisol said. Roland had appeared in the doorway again. He possessed a director's instinct for rooms where consequences were forming. How bad? We don't know yet, I said. Can it be exhibited? We don't know yet. Can we not make, we don't know, the official museum motto? Tasha stayed beneath the chest. I can put it on a t-shirt for the store. We stabilized the travel frame and spent the next hour comparing photographs. The crack had not opened during our lift because we had not lifted it. A faint line appeared in one warehouse image, partly hidden by shadow, but there was no scale beside it. The shifted support may have widened it during transit. May have. Possibly. Consistent with. The words Roland disliked were the words that kept records honest. Evelyn decided the chest could be displayed if Tasha built a full support cradle, and if no one moved it after installation without my authorization or Marisol's. Roland agreed immediately. The chest anchored the exhibition entrance in his rendering. Losing it would have forced him to redesign the first sightline. "Put that in writing," I said. His gaze rested on me for one beat too long. Of course, Dev's maker attribution became stronger 2 days later. With the drawers removed for inspection, we found a tiny 5-pointed punch mark on the inner left rail. Dev had seen the same mark in a digitized trade journal advertisement for Matthias Kern's Cincinnati workshop. He brought the image to Evelyn with the expression of a man trying not to run inside a library. "This doesn't prove Kern built the entire chest," he said, "but the fitted interior likely came from his shop." "Likely?" Roland asked. "Strongly likely. Can we have one label in this exhibition that doesn't sound afraid of being sued?" Dev looked at me. "Evidence is allowed to have edges," I said. Roland picked up the magnified photograph. A German immigrant cabinet maker builds a private masterpiece for his own tools. That's the story. "We don't know that he built it for himself," Dev said. "We don't know that it was private. We know his shop likely made the interior." "You found his mark." "We found a mark associated with his shop." Roland placed the photograph back on the table. "People need a person, Dev." Matthias Kern was a person. They need to know what he wanted. Dev closed his laptop halfway. "Then we need evidence of what he wanted." The room went still in the ordinary way workrooms go still when everyone finds a reason to look busy. Roland's voice softened. "I'm trying to help people care about your research. And I'm trying to keep my research true after they care." For a moment, something like respect passed across Roland's face. Then he nodded. "Give me a label by Monday." After he left, Dev opened his laptop again. "Am I fired?" "Not today," Tasha said. "He used your name." By the end of the second week, Roland had stopped coming to the receiving room. He requested updates through a shared dashboard and added comments at night. "Needs emotion. Too technical. Where is the human story?" On my condition schedule, beside the chest, he wrote, "Do we need this level of detail in a visitor-facing project?" I answered, "This is not visitor-facing. This keeps the object from breaking." His comment disappeared. The work continued. Tasha adapted 2 older cases with new inert gasketing, saving us a rental charge Roland had never included in the budget. Dev found payroll records connecting the workbench to a cabinet shop operated by 2 business partners, not the single craftsman described in the dealer file. I discovered that 3 tools Evelyn had acquired separately shared the same faded inventory numbers and had probably belonged to one shop. Each correction made the exhibit better. Each correction made it harder for Roland to describe the work as his alone. The first full gallery walkthrough took place on a Wednesday morning. Brown paper labels marked the future text panels. Empty mounts projected from the walls. The supported tool chest stood at the entrance. Its drawers closed, the crack protected by Tasha's cradle. Roland moved through the space with a yellow legal pad. The workbench should turn 45 degrees. "It can't," Tasha said. "It did in the rendering. The rendering weighs nothing. The donor sightline comes from that door. The approved movement plan comes from reality." He looked at me. "Can we adjust it? The bench has uneven feet and a center of gravity that shifts toward the vise. This orientation gives it the broadest support." A slight turn. "No." His pen paused over the pad. Evelyn was not present. Marisol was back at the warehouse. The loan agreement gave me authority, but authority feels different when you use it in a quiet gallery against someone who signs your performance review. Roland walked around the bench. 5 degrees. "What changes at 5 degrees?" "The entrance feels less rigid. The bench is rigid." His jaw tightened. Tasha crouched and pointed to the padded footblocks. We'd have to remake those. The floor drops 3/8 of an inch toward the south wall. Roland looked at the floor as if it had failed him personally. Fine, he said, leave it. He made a mark on his pad. An hour later, the revised staff assignment sheet arrived by email. Dev remained associate curator. Tasha remained preparator. Beside my name, under exhibition role, Roland had replaced lead registrar and cataloger with collections support. I walked upstairs with the printout in my hand. His assistant told me he was preparing for a donor lunch. I'll wait. Roland opened his door before I sat down. You have 2 minutes. I held out the sheet. What is this? A simplified list for external use. Collections support. Yes. The loan agreement names me responsible registrar. The loan agreement is a technical document. It's the document allowing us to possess the collection. And this is a staffing summary. You changed Dev's title back after he objected. Dev didn't object. We had a productive curatorial discussion. I'm having one now. Roland took the page, folded it once, and handed it back. This is exactly the behavior I'm trying to manage. What behavior? The need to plant a flag in every task. I stared at him. He lowered his voice, becoming my uncle again. You are indispensable to this project, Nell. But indispensable people can make everyone else feel like trespassers. I need you to support the exhibition, not claim it. I catalogued it. You processed it. I corrected 31 records, under my direction. You didn't know those records were wrong. His eyes hardened. From the outer office came the soft clink of plates. His donor lunch had arrived. Roland stepped back and put one hand on the door. All lender communication goes through me from now on. That contradicts the agreement. No, it establishes professional courtesy. Evelyn already declined the change. He went very still. You asked her? I confirmed her preference in writing. For the first time since the project began, Roland looked at me as if I were not a difficult relative or a valuable employee, but an obstacle that had learned to move. Send me that correspondence, he said. It's in the project folder. Then you won't mind losing direct access to it. He closed the door gently, leaving me in the outer office with the folded assignment sheet and the smell of someone else's lunch. I unfolded the assignment sheet and smoothed it against the wall with my palm. Roland's assistant, Camille, watched from behind her monitor. Do you need an envelope? She asked. No, I have the good ones. That feels excessive. They have the museum crest. She opened a drawer anyway. Camille had worked for 3 directors and viewed conflict as a filing problem. She handed me a cream envelope thick enough for a wedding invitation. Thank you, I said. Don't seal it in here. He hates the sound. I put the folded page inside and returned to the collections wing. My access to the shared exhibit folder disappeared before lunch. The collections database still held the official object records because Roland could not remove one staff member without asking our software administrator to change an entire permissions group. He apparently had not thought that far ahead. I exported the current condition entries to the Secure Collections archive, where monthly snapshots were kept, and documented the access change in my handover notes. Then I did my job. That irritated him more than a scene would have. For the next 3 days, exhibit questions reached me through Dev, and my answers returned through Camille. Roland sent Tasha a message asking whether she could rotate the workbench, just enough to wake up the entrance. Tasha replied with the floor measurements, the approved mount drawing, and a photograph of the padded blocks. He answered, Understood. She printed it. I'm framing this, she said, first documented sighting. Dev was less amused. Roland had replaced his 12-page gallery introduction with a page and a half that began, For centuries, American makers poured their hopes into the tools they held. My text had footnotes, Dev said. His text has hopes. The makers were wage laborers. A fair number of them poured resentment into the tools they held. Tasha glanced at his screen. Put that on the wall. Roland's version described Matthias Kern as a solitary craftsman, perfecting his life's chest. Dev had found payroll entries for 6 people in Kern's shop and no evidence that the chest had belonged to him. "Did you tell Roland?" I asked. "He said visitors won't remember 6 names." "Did you remind him we don't know any of their names?" "Yes." That did not improve the meeting. Dev looked exhausted. His professional confidence came in bursts. Between them, he worried every disagreement might be the one people remembered when a fellowship committee called. "I need his recommendation next spring," he said. It was not an excuse. It was a cost. "Keep your research files," I said. "Send your corrections in writing. Don't put your name on text you believe is false." "That last part sounds expensive." "It can be." He turned his laptop toward me. The document history showed his original label, Roland's replacement, and a tracked comment from Roland. "We are curating an experience, not preserving everyone's caveats." "Can you still access this?" Dev asked. "No." He saved a copy to the curatorial record, the gallery filled by increments. Text panels arrived wrapped in brown paper. Tasha installed mounts while muttering measurements under her breath. The cases Roland thought we owned became the cases Tasha made usable with aluminum barrier tape, new gaskets, and 6 hours she did not have. I checked every surface before an object touched it. I signed each entry. Blue ties multiplied through the room. Roland stayed away until the photographer returned. The shoot was scheduled for 7 in the morning before staff arrived. I learned about it at 7:20 when Tasha found a brass square on the wrong shelf and its blue tag tied in a bow. She came into my workroom holding the cut length of tape between 2 fingers. "He brought Melanie down from development," she said. "They wanted the tools to look less museum-y. Melanie Webb was our development coordinator. She was excellent with donor histories, patient with seating charts, and had never been trained to handle objects." "Where's Roland?" "Breakfast meeting." "Of course." We went object by object. The brass square had moved 6 inches. 2 wooden planes had been taken from their fitted supports and placed directly on the case deck for a photograph. A chalk line had been turned, so its handle faced forward. None showed visible damage. Visible was not the same as documented. Tasha had arrived while Melanie was cutting the tag from the divider. "I told her to stop," she said. She did. "Did the photographer get pictures before that?" "About 40. Good." She gave me a look. "You have a strange relationship with the word good. The photographs establish where everything was and who moved it. We recorded the changes, retook the condition images, and inspected every point that had touched an unpadded surface. I added a movement incident note to the database. At 9, Roland came down carrying his yellow pad. "Why is the shoot paused?" "Objects were moved without authorization. They were adjusted for photographs by untrained staff. Melanie followed my direction. That makes it worse." His nostrils flared. "Nothing was damaged." "We're still checking." "For what?" "Hurt feelings." "For changes." He stepped close enough that I could smell his coffee. "You're documenting this as an incident?" "It is an incident." "I authorized the movement." "You don't have that authority." "I am the executive director of this museum." "And Evelyn owns the objects." Tasha stood at the open case, her screwdriver still in her hand. Dev had stopped near the entrance with a roll of label proofs. Roland noticed both of them. His voice dropped. "My office. Now." I did not move. "I need to finish the inspection." That was not a request. "It will take 20 minutes. For a second, I thought he might order security to escort me upstairs. Then the photographer emerged from behind a panel and asked whether he should pack his lights. Roland turned his smile back on. "Give Nell her 20 minutes. In his office, there were 2 pages waiting on the conference table. One was a formal warning for insubordination and failure to follow communication protocols. The other was a 4-page condition summary with Roland's name on the cover. He pushed a pen toward me. "We need to lower the temperature. The gallery is at 69. This performance, Nell, whatever you think you're proving. I read the summary. It described the collection as received in stable condition. The chest crack appeared as previously documented base wear. The tool movement was absent. The form was dated 2 days earlier. You want me to sign this? As collections manager, it's inaccurate. It's a summary. The crack may have widened in transit. The lender approved display on a support cradle with restricted movement, which is what happened. I looked at the date. Why is this backdated? It reflects the status after installation. Installation wasn't complete 2 days ago. He sat opposite me. The catalog goes to the printer this afternoon. The touring packet goes to 2 potential venues tomorrow. We cannot send 80 pages of anxiety with it. Condition reports aren't marketing materials. Exactly. This is the document that goes in the packet. Then call it an exhibit overview. Don't call it a condition summary and ask me to certify it. You're making language more important than the institution. Language is the institution. Agreements, labels, records, donor restrictions. What do you think holds this place together? Relationships. The answer came so quickly that I almost admired it. Roland leaned forward. I have spent 11 years making people care whether this museum survives. They don't care about your database fields. They care that we tell them something worth keeping. And when the thing worth keeping cracks, you repair it. First, you write down how it cracked. His face closed. I'm giving you a direct instruction, and I'm declining to sign a false record. He took the pen back and placed it exactly parallel to the folder. Go home. I have objects open in the gallery. Tasha can close the cases. The agreement names me. The agreement does not prevent me from putting an employee on administrative leave. There it was, plain and almost quiet. I folded my hands beneath the table because they had started shaking. What's the stated cause? Insubordination, breach of reporting lines, and conduct disruptive to a major institutional project. Paid or unpaid? Paid through the preview. We'll discuss terms after. You timed it to keep me silent while I'm still on payroll. I timed it to keep you from doing further damage. He slid the warning toward me. You can sign acknowledgement. I can receive a copy. You always did love distinctions. They're useful when people rewrite things. For the first time, he looked hurt. It lasted less than a second, but I saw it. So that's who I am now? I think that's who you are in this room. He stood and opened the door. I collected my coat, my personal mug, and the square tin where I kept extra lengths of blue cotton tape. Tasha waited beside my workroom doorway. What did he do? Administrative leave through the preview. She looked toward the ceiling, jaw working. Don't quit, she said. Oh, I'm not quitting. Good, I don't want to learn your database. Dev appeared behind her. Can he finish without you? He can finish. That was never the question. I gave Tasha the closure checklist. She read the first page and handed it back. You send this by email. I'm locked out of the project folder. You still have email. She wanted the record. I sent the checklist to her, Dev, Roland, and Camille. I noted every open case, every pending signature, and the handling restriction on the chest. I did not add a sentence about fairness. At home, my mother called and asked me to come to dinner. Roland had already spoken to her. She served roast chicken on the blue plates she used when she wanted a meal to behave. She'd also invited him, though she waited until I arrived to mention it. He stood at the kitchen counter slicing bread. Helena thought we should talk, he said. She usually does when one of us wants the other trapped in a room. My mother set down the gravy. Can we make it 10 minutes without prosecuting each other? Roland carried the bread to the table. I'm not angry. That must be restful, I said. Dinner lasted 6 minutes before my mother asked why I could not sign a temporary document and correct it after the opening. Because it would go to 2 venues as an official condition summary. But the exhibit needs those venues. The exhibit needs accurate records. Roland put down his fork. She believes accuracy belongs to her. I believe my signature belongs to me. My mother's eyes moved between us. "He gave you your beginning," she said softly, "and I gave him 15 years after it. A family doesn't invoice each other." "No, apparently only one person keeps the account." Roland pushed his chair back. "I came because Helena asked. I won't sit here while you turn professional discipline into a family betrayal." "You use the family before you use discipline." He looked at my mother, not me. "This is what I've been managing." Then he left. My mother began stacking plates with food still on them. "You embarrassed him." He suspended me. "You challenged him in front of his staff." "Our staff." She set my plate in the sink hard enough to chip it. A small white crescent appeared on the blue rim. We both stared at it. "He loves that museum," she said. "So do I." "You don't act like it the same way." "No." That was the first thing all evening we agreed on. The next morning, a courier envelope arrived at my apartment. Roland offered 8 weeks severance, continuation of benefits through the quarter, and a neutral reference. In return, I would resign, release employment claims, and agree not to make statements that could harm the museum or its leadership. I placed the pages beside my unopened square tin. Then I emailed Camille. Received. I do not accept. Tasha sent me 3 installation photographs from her personal camera. Each showed me beside an open case with the blue tags intact. Dev sent the final catalog proof. His name and Tasha's remained in a small staff list near the back. Mine had been removed. At 4 on preview day, Camille called. "Evelyn is here," she said. "She asked for the responsible registrar. I'm on leave." I explained that. "And?" Camille lowered her voice. She explained it back. Roland could cancel my staff access, but Evelyn would not sign the post-installation inspection without me present. 40 minutes later, I entered through the public doors as donors gathered beneath the hanging trade signs. The gallery glowed. The tool chest stood safely on Tasha's cradle. The workbench held the entrance exactly where reality required it. Roland was already speaking to a small crowd. Behind him, the corner of a freshly replaced wall label had begun to lift. My name was gone. By the time Evelyn closed her binder, the word assistance had settled over the gallery like dust. Roland lifted his sparkling water and addressed the small circle around us. "As I said, we have a production error. Nell is understandably upset." "Don't tell them what I understand," I said. Lloyd Becker stopped studying the iron vise. "Roland, was her credit in the approved file?" "Yes." "No," I said. "It was in the file I approved. I don't know who approved this one." Dev had come in behind the donors. He still wore his visitor badge even though he worked in the building, because Roland had reassigned staff badges for the evening and Dev's had been left off the list. He took his laptop from his bag. "I have the print history," he said. Roland turned. "This is not the time." "It has time stamps." Evelyn reopened the binder. "Before we discuss the label," she said, "I want to finish my inspection." Her eyes had gone to the blue ties. The square knot beneath the workbench was intact, but the divider's tag had been replaced with a bow. One of the plain tags had a loose double knot, with an inch of frayed tape hanging from it. Evelyn touched neither one. "Who moved these objects?" Roland's face remained composed. "We adjusted a few pieces for photography. You reported any movement to me." The objects were returned to their mounts. That was not my question. Tasha stepped forward from the back of the gallery. She had changed out of her installation clothes for the preview, but there was still black mount paint under one thumbnail. "I stopped the shoot after I found Melanie cutting a tag," she said. "I photographed the objects before we inspected and reset them." Roland gave her a look I had received often enough to translate. Tasha looked back. Evelyn turned to me. "Did you inspect them?" "Before Roland placed me on leave." "You were placed on leave after an unauthorized movement involving my collection." Roland raised a hand. "Evelyn, the personnel issue is separate." "Your personnel issue removed the registrar named in my agreement. She remains employed through tonight. Then she remains responsible through tonight." The air handler rattled above us. Evelyn asked for the post-installation condition records. Roland called Melanie over and told her to bring the touring packet from his office. When it arrived, I recognized the 4-page summary I had refused to sign. My signature line had been removed. Roland's appeared in its place. Evelyn read the first page, then the entry for the tool chest. "Previously documented baseware," she said. "The lender approved display," Roland replied. "I approved display after Nell and Marisol documented a possible transit change, and Tasha built a support cradle. Where is that information?" "It's in the full internal record, which I have not been given. We condensed it for venues. You changed it. We made it legible." Evelyn handed the summary to Lloyd. "I will not authorize a touring proposal based on this document." Roland's grip tightened around his glass. "We can send the longer report tomorrow. Tonight, no objects to be moved, handled, photographed, or unpacked further. The final inspection is paused." A few donors began to drift toward the next gallery, where nothing complicated was happening. Sheila took another mushroom tart on her way out. Roland watched them leave. "You're jeopardizing an exhibition over a credit line." Evelyn's expression barely changed. "You jeopardized a loan over your inability to share one." The preview continued because donors had arrived, the food had been paid for, and the objects were stable where they stood. Roland gave his remarks without referring to the catalog or the people who had made it. He spoke beautifully about work leaving marks on the things we use. I stood beside the supported tool chest and listened. Afterward, Lloyd asked me for the severance offer, my warning, the condition records, and the correspondence about my access. "Send what you have," he said. "I'm locked out." "From everything?" "The project folder. Not the official collections database." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Roland told the executive committee you refused a routine document because you wanted curatorial credit. I refused a backdated condition summary because it omitted an object movement and changed the chest entry. Can you show that?" "Yes." "Then show it." Roland appeared at Lloyd's shoulder. "Could we avoid conducting an employment inquiry in the gallery?" Lloyd turned. "Where would you prefer?" "After the opening, through an orderly process. The lender just paused final inspection because your orderly process suspended the person named in her agreement. You're accepting Nell's characterization. I'm accepting Evelyn's." Roland looked at me. The public warmth had drained from his face, leaving him tired and older. "You wanted this," he said. "I wanted my name left where you approved it." "You could have come to me privately." "I did." His gaze flicked toward the rising corner of the wall label. For a moment, I saw the entire distance between us. The phone call he had made for me. The speeches I had written for him. The exhibitions we had installed at midnight with takeout going cold on crates. The family dinners where he told stories about the museum and forgot I had been in the room when they happened. Then he walked away to thank the caterer. Evelyn completed her inspection the next morning with Marisol, Tasha, and me present. Roland objected to my return, but Lloyd authorized it for the limited purpose of satisfying the loan agreement. We began with the divider. Tasha's photographs showed its original position, the photographer's altered arrangement, and the object after inspection. The dent at the hinge had not changed. The planes were stable. The chalk line had acquired a faint dust mark from the unpadded deck, removable without treatment. At the chest, Marisol checked the crack against our scaled image. "No movement," she said. Tasha patted the edge of her cradle. "Reality wins again." Evelyn signed the updated entry. I signed beneath her. She did not lift the inspection pause. "The objects are stable," Roland said from the doorway. "The records are incomplete," Evelyn replied. "What do you require?" "Accurate reports, the lender-approved credits, a designated registrar with authority to enforce the agreement. You have all three." Evelyn looked at the blank strip where my name had been. "Not yet." Lloyd arranged a meeting in the museum cafe after closing. The tables smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old espresso. Roland sat at one end with the touring packet stacked before him. I sat at the other with the condition report, my warning, and the unopened severance agreement. Evelyn attended as lender. Tasha and Dev attended because I insisted the credit dispute included their work. Lloyd began by asking what would allow the exhibition to open. Roland answered first. Restore Nell's line on the credits. Add Dev and Tasha. Replace the touring summary. End the leave. He said each concession as if placing coins on a counter. And the catalog? Dev asked. Your name is in the staff list. My research is under your byline. Roland turned to him. I shaped the interpretation. You rewrote it. You also kept the Kern attribution after I told you it overstated the evidence. I made the scholarship accessible. You made the dead man lonelier because it sounded better. Tasha covered her mouth with one hand. It could have been a cough. Roland looked at me. What do you want? It was the question he had avoided from the beginning. Correct credits in the gallery and catalog. Full condition records sent to any potential venue. Written attribution standards for future projects. Collection staff report to the board's collections committee on loan compliance. You want to take collections out of my authority. I want the person enforcing a lender agreement to have somewhere to go when the person violating it is her supervisor. His face reddened. I continued before I lost my nerve. My leave is rescinded. The warning is removed. The severance offer is withdrawn. My role is lead registrar and cataloger for this exhibition because that is the work I performed. You're negotiating a promotion out of a disciplinary event. I'm correcting the staff assignment sheet. Lloyd looked at Roland. Can the museum meet those terms? Can the museum function if every staff disagreement becomes a board matter? No, Lloyd said. Can it function if signed loan terms become optional? Roland did not answer. He was still good at reading a room. He knew Evelyn would withhold touring authorization. He knew Lloyd had seen the false simplicity of the summary. He knew Dev's version history and Tasha's photographs would survive any argument about tone. He agreed to the opening terms. The public opening moved from Friday to Monday. Tasha used the extra days to reset every object disturbed during the shoot. Dev restored the evidence to the Kern label, including the 6-person shop. I prepared the complete report and sent it to Evelyn for signature. The revised catalog credited Roland as exhibition director, Dev for curatorial research and interpretation, Tasha for installation and mount design, and me for cataloging and registration. Roland did not speak to me while we proofed it. The board review lasted 7 weeks. It was less dramatic than the preview and more damaging. Expense reports, project files, old catalogs, staff interviews, the questions accumulated. A former registrar named Sandra Cole came in with 3 exhibitions worth of draft labels, bearing her name and final labels without it. She had never complained formally because Roland controlled her reference. A contract designer produced an email in which he had instructed her to consolidate 4 staff credits under director's concept. None of it involved theft of money or damage to objects. It showed a repeated method. Absorb the work, minimize the worker, call resistance a failure of teamwork. Roland defended himself intelligently. He showed the grants he had won, the attendance he had increased, the donors who would take his calls. He argued that public clarity required editorial judgment. Several trustees agreed with parts of that argument. They also saw the backdated summary. The board removed loan compliance from his sole authority and placed staff attribution rules in policy. When his contract came up for renewal, he resigned before the vote. He accepted a fundraising position at a larger institution in another state, where his talent for remembering favorite trees would still be useful. He sent the staff a farewell message about seasons of leadership. My name was spelled correctly. My mother did not speak to me for most of the review. Then, on the first Sunday after Roland announced his resignation, she came to my apartment carrying the blue plate she had chipped. A pale repair line crossed the rim. I glued it, she said. I can see that. It's not food safe now. I also see that. She placed it on my table. I kept asking the easier person to give in. I waited. You were the easier person, she said. Not this time. No. She touched the repaired edge. I thought keeping the family meant keeping your uncle from leaving angry. And me? I thought you'd stay. The honesty hurt more than an excuse would have. I almost didn't. She nodded. I know. We did not fix everything that afternoon. We drank coffee, and she told me Roland had already packed his office. When she left, the repaired plate remained on my table. Useless for dinner, but too honest to throw away. Hands at Work never became the national tour Roland had promised. 2 smaller museums requested the corrected proposal, and one eventually booked it for the following year after reviewing the full condition records. Dev received his fellowship without Roland's recommendation. Tasha added "understood" to the top of her favorite printout and hung it above her workbench. On the morning before the exhibit traveled, I made the last gallery inspection. The workbench stood beneath the corrected label. The maple edge still carried the shallow crescent left by someone whose name had not survived. Beside it, our names had. I replaced a frayed accession tie with a fresh length of blue cotton tape. Left over right, right over left. My mother's knot flattened beneath my fingers. I checked it against the object record, signed the final line, and left it visible.